Hello, welcome back to the game room. Welcome 2023. Well, 2022 was a pretty solid year for the channel. We had some good growth. We're sneaking up on 1,500 subs. I think we added about 70 or 80 last year, which is excellent. So happy to see all the new faces around here and the old faces. Now, for last year, I specifically wanted to get to some more of my PS1 games, and we did that. In fact, I don't think I covered any retro system other than the PS1, the exception being the one Genesis game. So, looking back on last year, I wanted to rank the top 10 games I played for the channel. Now, just like I did last year, I'm excluding all games that were released in 2022. Obviously, we don't want to see Elden Ring at the #1 spot yet again. But last year was interesting. My computer was executed in October of 2021, and the tail end of my shoddy showcase phase was the beginning of 2022. And as part of that, when I was doing those videos, some of the games I would record live while I was talking about it. And so a few honorable mentions that I had played, I had planned on doing shoddy showcases for. So there's a game called John Wick Hex, the Mario Bowser's Fury, and then the Mario Rabbids DLC for the first game would have been on this list, or at least some of them would have been on it, but as I didn't actually make any content for it, out the door. I also had spent the majority of December playing a game called Vanguard Bandits, which ironically I think might have been the #1 game, but I didn't get around to reviewing it due to the holidays and everything. So what were the top 10 games I covered this year? Well, let's check it out. Number 10. So number 10 is a game that I played on my brand new PS5, and it was one of the reasons why I wanted to pick it up. I had played the original. Once again, not a huge fan of the series, but number 10 on the list is going to be Demon's Souls Remake for the PS5. Really sank my teeth into this one. It was a fun journey from the beginning to the end. Very much a kind of an archaic style for the Soulsborne, nowhere near as fluid as something like Elden Ring or Sekiro, or maybe even some of the later Dark Souls. Very much the beginnings of this whole kind of style, and then with the part of when you upgrade yourself, you're making yourself worse, and the enemies get stronger, and just, it's nice and contained, and just, I enjoyed it. But still, number 10, not the best game I played by far, but definitely one of the more enjoyable ones, and a good reason to have the PS5, though the fact that they couldn't port this to the PS4 still has me wondering a little bit. It didn't seem that revolutionary. Now, number 9. Number 9 was a game that I didn't know existed back in the day. I was a fan of the third game in the series, and I always wanted to play the other games. And I'd been hearing for years now that the fourth one is actually better than the third one. And that game we're talking about is Breath of Fire 4. A game that I had a little bit of trouble playing. I had to flip my PS2 over to get past an early cutscene, but upon doing the footage for it, it didn't happen again. And you can see when I bought it, it's got this stupid Blockbuster sticker on it that I wasn't aware of until I put it in my system. But all in all, I was not crazy about this. The music got a little boring in my opinion. I was not a fan of the battle music. The art style was a little too cartoon anime for my liking. I preferred more of the darker style of Breath of Fire 3. Splitting between the two protagonists was both good and bad, as it really left you feeling lacking as far as a final enemy goes, because I never really thought whatever his name, Haolu or whatever, was a great villain, in my opinion, because he's misunderstood. And looking into some of the stuff that was cut, you actually have him beheading someone in the game, which maybe if they kept that in there, I thought he would be a little bit more badass. But all in all, the game just never really clicked with me. I thought it was fun, but just didn't have the same magic the third one did. Really just kind of blended in with all the rest of the games I played this year. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't even put it in my top 10 if I'd had more games to pull from. But yeah, there it is. Shoot me if you must, because if you didn't hate me for this one, you're definitely going to hate me for this next one, because number 8, now this might just be recency bias, this might be the fact that I split this in two, or maybe I was expecting more than what I got, but number 8, gotta go with Suikoden 2. As much fun as I had playing this throughout the year, I found better games, in my opinion. The whole 100 characters thing is a little bit of a gimmick that finding them all was not that enjoyable, in my opinion, especially with some of the ridiculous nature of how the recruitment must happen. The fact that I ended up not getting the best ending, even though I got everyone, just because I got everyone after a certain point of the game where you needed them earlier, was annoying as hell. So maybe that's coloring this a bit. But combat was not that revolutionary, in my opinion. It really didn't give you that much satisfaction as far as intricate fights or making you think about what you did. The magic system did not allow you to refuel mid-battle, so that was a bit of a pain in the ass. And just, I don't know, not what I was expecting going into it. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. Once again, I sound way too negative on these. Still, really enjoyed my time playing that and Breath of Fire 4. Just not the best game of the year, and really not worth that price tag, in my opinion. But I'm glad to have it. Now, number 7. Number 7 is definitely one of those guilty pleasure games where it's so ridiculous, but it's just pure fun when you're playing it, which I like. I like it sometimes when I can just put in a game, turn my mind off, and just enjoy a good experience, something that I haven't played before in a style I haven't seen before. And that is No One Can Stop Mr. Domino. Such a stupidly fun game. Japanese as hell, ridiculous. There's secrets in it even. If you complete it while getting it all in one run, you can get different outcomes to the endings. You're throwing girls in bathtubs and having people get blown up from their stove, and just so much. Like, you can't not play it and have a smile on your face, and it's short. It's a short experience. There's not that much to it. So all that combined to make it my 7th most favorite game of the year that I played for the channel. And if you haven't picked it up, it looks interesting to you. It's definitely got that Katamari Damacy feel to it, and I can't recommend it enough. It is very, very easy, fun for the whole family. Anyone can play it, even people that aren't into massive RPGs. So No One Can Stop Mr. Domino would be my number 7. Now my number 6 is a game that does not play great, can be very dark and hard to see, and very frustrating as well, and yet I kept wanting to play more of it, and that is Vagrant Story. This was another game that I'd heard so much about, how great it is, how wonderful it is, and actually getting into it, the fact that it takes place in Ivalice, the Final Fantasy Tactics land. It's the same composer too, and it very much feels like you're in Ivalice. The music in this game is great. Gameplay-wise, movement-wise, structure-wise, it is a complete mess, but I'm so enthralled with it because it really does feel like a alternate universe of real-time strategy, action-oriented combat that Square kind of just left on the wayside and never touched base on again. The story is all over the damn place. That's kind of par for the course as far as Square Enix in the 2000s goes, because I think it came out in 2000. But as far as the gameplay goes, very interesting. Had you wanting to play more, really was a bridge between an action RPG and a turn-based RPG, and did something different. Which, as you'll notice, I really appreciate when games they do something unique and they go full force into it, which Vagrant Story definitely did and was very competent as far as the music. It felt great. It didn't have the most clear level design, and it was a little maze-like at times. You would find keys, and it's not even designed for you to be able to do everything in your first go-round. The combining of weapons to make stronger weapons I found very difficult to understand, and load times for saving and entering the chest was obnoxiously long. But still, all in all, a very, very fun experience. Not as much fun as my number 5. Number 5 is a game that people are shocked I didn't play. My buddy Avalanche Jared was like, "You haven't played this yet?" No, I haven't. And that is the original Parasite Eve. I watched my buddy David play this game when it was current. I even have false memories of what the game looked like, which I might be confusing with Parasite Eve 2, or who knows. I imagined it looked more like the Transistor when you go into the planning stages, where it had a grid on it where you moved in, but there's no grid, there's no dotted grid that you walk in Parasite Eve. It's all basically in rooms with pre-rendered backgrounds. I don't know where that memory came from. Maybe Eternal Darkness, something like that. I don't know. But yes, game, once again, story is classic 90s Square. Makes no damn sense. but you have people in an opera house bursting into flame. You got a badass cop who punches ass and chews bubble gum and is all out of gum. It even jumps out of a plane and does crazy crap. Like, it is so over the top that it is wonderful. The gameplay itself, very unique. Another one of these games that, God, I wish Square was doing stuff like, I mean, to be fair, they kind of are. They kind of are. Stuff like Dialfield and Octopath is opening new chapters for them. But man, they were really just throwing so much against the wall back in the 90s, and most of it stuck. This game's a lot of fun. There's so much nuance into it. Once again, this game is kind of the predecessor to Vagrant Story because you're combining weapons and you're doing things of that nature, but it makes a little bit more sense in this game than it did in that one because it's a lot clearer. Oh, you combine weapons to take their perks, you combine armor to get their stats. I don't know, maybe that's what they were going for in that game as well. But Parasite Eve, great time. That music, while not the best music in the world, when I was watching my buddy Jared play it on stream, God, it is catchy. So I can see why people get addicted to it. It's one of those things where when you hear that Parasite Eve tune, you very much, you're transported back into the game, into the feel and the vibe of the game. And that, I think, more than anything, is one of the best parts about it. Just the way it really brings you into this whole New York area. And there's even the Chrysler building, which has all these floors of combat that I didn't check out, which gives me more reason to play it again down the line. Now, number four is really hearkening me back to why I love some of these older PlayStation games, because I'm a tactics guy through and through, and I'd never played Vandal Hearts, but my buddy Artur had told me about this one, said it was a great game, I should check it out. If you like Final Fantasy Tactics, you would get down on this. And yes, while it has some atrocious art style in my opinion, it is a very competent game. It is a very competent tactics game. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Short and sweet as well. So there's secrets in it that you can have replay value for it, but really it is one of those games where you can beat it in about, I don't know, 12 to 20 hours, which I think is a sweet spot for an RPG in my opinion. Not that I don't get down on 30, 40, 50 hour games, but it is just nice being able to beat a game in what I consider a week. A week of intermittent gaming, 3 or 4 days of that, putting in 5, 6 hours, get it done. I like doing that. And Vandal Hearts just had me wanting to come back for more. Vagrant Story was the first game I beat while holding my little infant daughter, but Vandal Hearts was the first one that I really started and finished with her, and that was a special thing. So I loved Vandal Hearts, really great game. My number 4 of the year. Now, number 3, we are jumping out of the 90s, out of the PlayStation, and going to my favorite PS5 exclusive, which is the Mighty Returnal. Returnal is still a fantastic game, and really, in my opinion, other than the load times for stuff like Elden Ring, God of War, whatnot, is the reason to own a PS5, because this game is fantastic. It has that same style of avoidance, risk-reward, a little bit of rogueliteness that you would get from something like Dead Cells and Furi. It combines it into an excellently competent game. I do still have some grievances with it, where chiefly being the way that you fire your gun with the trigger. It also fires your secondary feature by holding the trigger down. I think that was a little bit too much, too quiche, too clever for their own good, just because it can affect gameplay. But overall, really fun game, but it wears on you, especially if you're going for that true ending. Now, number two could have been my number 1. A game that I did not expect to be as long as it was. My friend Daria had recommended it years ago, so luckily I picked it up then because it did shoot up in value, and that is Alundra. And for those of you out there who know, there's a lot of different variants of the game, so if you're wondering which one I have, I think my variant is variant E. So you have the disc that has the chick on it, and then you got the land on the background. There's apparently like 9 different versions of the game, and this one I think is one of the more uncommon ones, but who knows. But yes, Alundra, a Zelda-like game for the PlayStation, and is very, very, very good. As well as it's by working design, so it's definitely got some college humor at times. You got a guy named Bonaire, and he says his name is Bone Air, like Bonaire, like Bonaire, and then he says like, oh wow, that woman is real Bonaire material, just to give you I mean, it's so bad, it's funny. I love it, and that's Vanguard Bandits, another working design games, has some of that humor in it as well. But gameplay, very nice. It really just, other than a few unfair scenarios with having to light torches and move really too precisely at times, or be in the right place at the right time as far as falling barrels, everything about this game is perfect. It's a shame that Alundra 2 allegedly got rid of everything that made the first game work. Doesn't even look like the same type of game. Like, it goes from this really nice art style, kind of 16-bit but 32-bit type game, and then changes it to a 3D rendered forgettable game that no one talks about, and then this series died. So there you go. But yes, Alundra, my number 2. So what would be better than Alundra? Well, I loved Vandal Hearts, and I had to check out Vandal Hearts 2. And this game has one of the most ingenious and frustrating, but also unique and cool battle systems I've ever seen in a tactical RPG. Literally, the enemy moves simultaneously with you. So it gets to the point where you're anticipating not only what the enemy is going to do on their turn, but also which one of the units the enemy is going to use to attack you, and then you can counteract that before they counteract you. And it just makes for such a fun this dichotomy of strategy where you move a guy and then you can pull off this perfect move, or you move a guy and then he does something else, and then you both hoodwinked yourselves, or you get them and he doesn't get you, or etc, etc. And it is so expansive. The game's like a 40-50 hour game, which after you play the first one you were not expecting at all. It's much more serious, definitely takes much more note from Final Fantasy Tactics, as I believe it came out after Final Fantasy Tactics. It is just super fun. It's super fun. It really doesn't have much to do with the first one, so you can start with this one if you want, though I would suggest playing the first one beforehand, just so you can appreciate the nuances and the improvements they made, as well as the first one, probably for more people, is a better game. But for someone, if you like tactical games, you're going to be hard-pressed to find something that really fills that void as much as that bad boy. So yeah, that is it. Those are my top 10 games I played for the channel. I think I did a good job of clearing out some of my PS1 backlog. I, of course, not only added more to that backlog this year, but have even more games that I haven't covered yet, like Xenogears and Parasite Eve 2 and As Their Dreams. Like the list goes on and on and on. And I hope you guys will join me as we continue on to 2023. Looking forward to another year, and looking forward to seeing you guys in your comments. And it's always so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.